What's up, everyone? Welcome to your weekly tech update, the show that explores the newest, coolest, and cutest side of tech available on the interwebs. I'm your doctor of technology, Ray McNeil. Coming up on the program today, Microsoft's underwater data center resurfaces after 2 years. This portable CD player works with your wireless headphones for some old school cool. And of course, we'll wrap up the program with this week's Moment of Joy. All that and a whole lot more coming up on today's edition of your weekly tech update next. 2 years ago, Microsoft sank a data center off the coast of Orkney in a wild experiment. That data center has now been retrieved from the ocean floor, and Microsoft researchers are assessing how it has performed and what they can learn from it about energy efficiency. Their first conclusion is that the cylinder packed with servers had a lower failure rate than a conventional data center. When the container was hauled off the seabed around a half a mile offshore after being placed there in May of 2018, just 8 out of the 855 servers on board had failed. That compares very well with a conventional data center. Our failure rate in the water is 1/8 of what we see on land, says Ben Cutler, who has led what Microsoft calls Project Natick. The team is speculating that the greater reliability may be connected to the fact that there were no humans on board and that nitrogen rather than oxygen was pumped into the capsule. We think it has to do with this nitrogen atmosphere that reduces corrosion and is cool, and people not banging things around, Mr. Cutler says. Orkney was chosen for the trial by Microsoft partly because it was a center for renewable energy research in a place where the climate was temperate, perhaps even chilly. The idea was that the cost of cooling computers would be lower if they were underwater. The white cylinder emerged from the cold waters with a coating of algae and barnacles, but inside the data center was functioning well and is now being closely examined so that the research team can learn more. As more and more of our data is stored in the cloud, there is growing concern about the vast energy demands of data centers. Project Natick was partly about working out whether clusters of small underwater data centers for short-term use might be a commercial proposition, but also an attempt to learn broader lessons about energy efficiency in cloud computing. All of Orkney's electricity comes from wind and solar power, but there were no issues in keeping the underwater data center supplied with power. We've been able to run really well on what most land-based data centers consider an unreliable grid, says Spencer Fowers, one of the technical team on Project Natick. We are hopeful that we can look at our findings and say maybe we don't need to have quite as much infrastructure focused on power and reliability. Underwater data centers might sound an outlandish idea, but David Ross, who has been a consultant to the data center industry for many, many years, says the project has great potential. He believes organizations facing a natural disaster or terrorist attack might find it attractive. You could effectively move something to a more secure location without having all the huge infrastructure costs of constructing a building. It's flexible and cost-effective. Microsoft is cautioning about saying when an underwater data center might be a commercial product, but is confident that it has proved that the idea has value. We think that we're past the point where this is a science experiment, says Ben Cutler. Now it's simply a question of what do we want to engineer? Would it be a little one or would it be a large one? The experiment on Orkney is over, but the hope is that the result will be more environmentally friendly data storage, both on land and underwater. Teslas are awesome, but there are some things that you just aren't supposed to do with them. A Tesla Model S owner up in Alberta, Canada, was charged recently with dangerous driving after being pulled over for sleeping while traveling at speeds of 93 miles an hour. That's 150 kilometers an hour. The case raises questions about Tesla's partially automated driving system, Autopilot, and driver complacency. On July 9th, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police said they received a complaint of reckless driving on Highway 2 near Ponoka in Alberta. The 2019 Tesla Model S appeared to be self-driving, police said, traveling at over 140 kilometers an hour with both front seats completely reclined and both occupants appearing to be asleep. Officers began to pursue the vehicle with their emergency lights flashing, at which point the vehicle automatically began to accelerate, eventually reaching a speed of 150 kilometers an hour. After pulling over the vehicle, the driver, a 21-year-old male from British Columbia, was charged with speeding and driving while fatigued, resulting in a 24-hour license suspension. Later, the man was also charged with dangerous driving. Although manufacturers of new vehicles have built-in safeguards to prevent drivers from taking advantage of the new safety systems in vehicles, those systems are just that, supplemental safety systems. Superintendent Gary Graham of Alberta RCMP Traffic Services said in a statement that they are not self-driving systems. They still come with the responsibility of driving. A spokesperson for Tesla did not respond to a request for comment. Autopilot is a Level 2 partially autonomous system that combines adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, self-parking, and most recently, the ability to automatically change lanes. It uses a suite of sensors, including 8 cameras, radar, and ultrasonic to automate some of the driving tasks, but it also requires drivers to stay engaged with the vehicle in order to operate. The automaker's Autopilot system has been proven by traffic investigators to have contributed to a number of fatal crashes in the past, and the families of deceased drivers have sued Tesla for wrongful death. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has blamed crashes involving Autopilot on driver overconfidence. When there's a serious accident, it is almost always, in fact, maybe always, the case that it is an experienced user, and the issue is more one of complacency. That came from Musk in 2018. But by marketing its system as Autopilot, Tesla has been shown to encourage driver inattention. It's unclear to what extent the Tesla owner in Canada was misusing Autopilot. Tesla has said the advanced driver assistance system will only work when it detects a driver's hands on the steering wheel. If a driver's hands aren't detected, the system behind the wheel will begin to flash, followed by audible warnings, and eventually Autopilot will disable itself. So we have been led to believe anyway. Since its launch back in 2015, Tesla owners have sought out new and creative ways to trick Autopilot. People couldn't wait to upload videos sitting in the back seat while their cars drove autonomously down the highway. Tesla responded by updating its software to require drivers to keep their hands on the steering wheel, which seemed like a smart fix until one driver figured out all you need to do to fool the system was wedge an orange against the wheel to simulate the pressure of a human hand. Autopilot Buddy was a piece of magnetic plastic that attaches to the steering wheel in order to create the impression that the driver is keeping his or her hands on the wheel. Federal regulators issued a cease and desist order to prevent its sale. People love tricking technology, even if it could cost them their lives.